Mars once had enough water to support life. That from NASA scientists who say the Mars rover Opportunity found sulfates, minerals, and rock formations that indicate at least part of the red planet was drenched with H2O. Scientists stop short of saying the finding is direct proof that life once existed on Mars. But as ABC News correspondent Ned Potter reports, some think it could be just a matter of time.
What an amazing time to be alive and exploring Mars, said one scientist. For years now, NASA has been looking for signs of past Martian water, and the Opportunity rover has found them in abundance.
Opportunity has landed in an area of Mars where liquid water once drenched the surface. Moreover, this area would have been a good habitable environment for some period of time.
The giveaway was in this long outcropping of rock right near the rover's landing spot. When they looked very closely, they found the rock was layered, much as rocks on Earth form when silt from a stream settles and then hardens over time. The rover also found large amounts of salt and other minerals that need water to form on Earth.
This is the kind of place that would have been suitable for life. Now, that doesn't mean life was there. We don't know that. But this was a habitable place on Mars at one point in time.
The rover did not actually find living things. Mars today is considered too harsh a place for them. But if there was water there for a long enough time, scientists say life could well have formed on Mars, and perhaps elsewhere in the universe as well. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
I'm joined now by Farouk El-Baz. He's a research professor and the director for the Center of Remote Sensing at Boston University. Michael Schiess is with the Museum of Science in Boston. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Michael, pardon my ignorance, but didn't we in the 60s fly by and see that there were polar caps on Mars? And if we did, didn't that prove then what we allegedly proved today?
You're exactly right.
I am? Hard to believe.
Right. We've known for a long time there's water on Mars. The question is, what form is that water in? And for a long time, we have known that there's ice on Mars. But the results of this finding are pretty unique in that we now know at one point in time that there was liquid water on Mars.
Okay, I accept it if he says so. Why should I care, Farouk El-Baz?
You shouldn't accept it.
There is a correction.
What's the correction?
The correction is that the polar caps, with the ones that we saw, these white caps there, they are mostly carbon dioxide ice. They are not water ice. Very little water ice in it. So that when we saw the polar caps and people said that there is ice, yes, there is ice, but it is not water ice. It's carbon dioxide ice.
So I had it and you took it away from me.
That is right.
Okay, so let's stay with current events. Why should I and the other 280 million Americans care that we made this finding, Farouk?
Because Mars has been in the human mind for so long, and we thought that there may have been human beings on Mars at one time, because Schiaparelli saw the canals and we called them canalian. We thought these are canals, and we saw Martian features change with time, and they said, these are seasons. People plant crops and they change with time, and there had been quite a bit of perception of life and human beings on Mars doing all kinds of things, including raising crops and changing seasons. So right now, all we really need to know is, number one, has there been life on Mars?
Which we don't know based upon what we've...
Yeah, because before you know that, we should know, has there been any water on Mars? We know that water existed many moons ago on Mars through the fact that we saw all kinds of dry rivers on Mars. But this may have been in geologic history 2 billion years ago or whatever. But right now we realize that we wanted to see whether there had been water in the recent history of Mars.
Fair enough. But let me stay with you on a similar question. Where does that get us? Let's assume the next step here is that we know there was water, potentially torrents of water, seas potentially on Mars. Let's assume we take the next step and find out that there was actually life, not just the potential for life. So?
Well, we don't know there was life.
No, I understand that, but even if we get there, what does that mean? I mean, remember the great Peggy Lee song, Is That All There Is? Is that all there is? What does that do for us?
That's what science is all about. It's all about posing those questions and trying to ground truth it. And that's the beauty of science, that science is this framework for posing questions and then accumulating evidence. Nothing works like science does in that respect. And the ability to be able to go out there, send technology 100 million miles to Mars, and be able to confirm this is incredible. It says something about who we are, I think, as a species.
Are we going to be alive when the next step occurs? Let's assume it does occur and that we are able to determine that water equals life, the next step. When does that happen? What's the time frame?
Within 5 to 6 years, there will be a mission to Mars that would actually take a sample and return it to the Earth. And this is when we are really able to do the investigation whether there are any organic materials in that rock or not.
Okay. Then at that point, even organic materials. Let me read a quote to you, Michael, from Roger Launius, if I'm pronouncing it right, former chief historian at NASA, who said yesterday, this is a significant step in answering the fundamental question, are we alone in the universe? Is he right? That it is a fundamental step in that search?
It is a fundamental
The
step.
discovery
certainly.
of water at some time in the history of Mars.
You bet.
Why?
Because we know water to be a key ingredient, based on our experience on Earth, we know water to be a key ingredient in life. And you know, you look at some of the extreme environments on Earth, the bottom of the ocean near hydrothermal hot springs, the Arctic tundra. We find life in some very inhospitable places, but one of the common denominators is that there's water. So this does go a long way, as the quote you read mentions.
Okay, let me be my cynical self for a moment, if I may, Farouk. NASA is playing this up hugely. You might argue it's on the merits. I might argue it's because the Columbia disaster was a year ago. Their budgets are in trouble. The future of so many programs are in trouble. Is it not possible that this is being pumped in many ways to reestablish the credibility of an agency that's had a lot of troubles?
Of course it is being pumped. And this is perfectly okay too. It is perfectly okay that the agency has been in the corner for so long, and it needs to do something, and you need to give the people that working for NASA some moral support, and the morale has to be pumped up a little, and definitely this. And I see a great deal of that in this sense, because in the past, whenever we had something like this, and we had a very interesting discovery during the Apollo years, a bunch of the scientists were being reviewed by the press where they were, whether we're at the Cape at the time or in Houston or this. But now we bring in the scientists to NASA headquarters, and NASA headquarters makes a big deal out of it. No big deal in the past, but now it's a big deal to do that.
Let's talk about another big deal. I told you before we went on the air, my little girls, my kids love the Museum of Science. Forget scientists for a moment. Real people, I don't mean that disparagingly towards the likes of you. How do they see this thing? What's the conversation been like since the rovers, both of them landed on different sides of Mars?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been at the museum for about 5 years, and I haven't seen a topic such as this captivate people's imaginations. Our shows are selling out. We have, I mean, the shows are free as part of your visit to the museum, but seating capacity of 100, our shows have been 150, 200, even 300 people sitting on the floor in some cases to get a glimpse of this Mars phenomenon that we're all witnessing. So it's pretty special. Kids come up after the show. They've been asking incredible questions, questions that we're struggling with, quite honestly. So it really has gone a long way. I think one of the famous NASA quotes is, only NASA can inspire as NASA inspires, and it really is true in this case.
I think there is nothing else that, besides the Museum of Science, that can do that so beautifully. It really is doing a fantastic job.
And one last question for those of us that do look up at the sky without the skills that you have, but with the wonder, at least to some degree. One, what is the likelihood that a man or a woman from this planet would be on that planet? And two, is it necessary that a man or a woman is on that planet? And sadly, we only have 45 seconds.
All right, yes. It is very likely within 20 to 30 years.
And why do we need it? What can they do that a machine can't?
The selection of rocks, the selection of places, the interaction between the human eyes and the brain, and so on. There are a lot of things that the human beings can do that machines cannot. And we're going to see that, I think, in not too distant future.
Two very happy men, I should say. I can tell you firsthand. Thanks to our guests, Farouk El-Baz and Michael Sheese. Tomorrow on Newsnight is this.
What I found out had happened was I'd taken a round in the back of the head.